We're on lesson 7 tonight. If you don't have one, I think there's a few in the back. Skylar will be glad to grab you one if you need one. I think we've had them out a week or so, so everybody ought to have one hid somewhere. All right. Seeing too much motion back there. Yeah, I do. Oh, that's Johnny. Okay. All right, going to talk about wisdom again tonight. We're going to be so wise when we get through this study. We're not going to know what to do. All right, looks like we're kind of settled in, and so we can get started here. Michael Rainey, would you lead us in prayer, please?
Yes, sir. Lord, we thank you for everything you give us that we often take for granted, especially our health. Thank you for that, being able to do the things we do because you give us our health. Also, thank you for coming down and giving your life, doing what your Father said to do, so we can have a chance of everlasting life. Give us to be justified by faith in you. Know that this is what you intended for us to do, is love you and carry out your commandments and will and way. Be with the body, be Dottie and help him, all the others that are sick, help them recover, be with Caleb, help her recover. The ones that I can't remember, be with them also, help them. Help the ones that's had babies and the ones that are about to have them. My daughter, be with her. Bless her, work with how she is close to delivery time. She's trying to work through that. Be with her. Be with all us here and help us to love each other here in this congregation, and also help us to love people outside of it.
Amen. Go ahead and take your Bibles, Proverbs chapter 3, beginning at verse 19. That's where we're going to start tonight. Proverbs 3, verse 19. Let's look at verses 19 and 20. The Lord by wisdom founded the earth. By understanding he established the heavens. By his knowledge the depths were broken up, and clouds dropped down the dew. So we begin by talking about where the Lord's wisdom is found or where the Lord's wisdom is seen. And I think in the past we've talked about this, that all we have to do is look outside, look around us, and we see God's wisdom in the things that he created. It says, by his wisdom he founded the earth, by his wisdom he established the heavens. And the psalmist also said in Psalm 104, I won't ask you to turn there, but Psalm 104 verse 24, O Lord, how manifold are your works. What's manifold? Many. Like the manifold on your car, got several things coming out your engine going into one. So that's manifold. How manifold are your works. In wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your possessions. And so creation is visible proof of God. I've heard some in class make comments like, how can anybody look at a certain thing in nature and say there's no God? How can we look at our physical makeup of our bodies, how it functions? How can we look at that and say that was just happenstance? he also makes mention here in verse 20, by his knowledge the depths were broken up. What do you suppose that's in reference to? Remember your Genesis stories. Sir? Okay, the oceans, okay, that were created. All right. What about during the flood? Do you recall from Genesis chapter 7, and I wrote it down, Genesis chapter 7, verse 11, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, the 17th day of the month, all the fountains of the great deep were broken up. So here Solomon, all these years later, Solomon's saying, who brought about the great flood? God did. God brought it out. And the windows of heaven were opened up. So a little reference there to the great flood. And it also demonstrates that God is in control. God is in control and created nature and those things, and can control those if that's his will. Also going back to our study in the book of Job, and you might want to turn over here to Job chapter 38. Let's just do that. Job chapter 38. And we'll just kind of jump around a little bit in Job here. All right, look at verse 4. Job 38, verse 4. So God, speaking to Job here, asked this question. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined how big the earth was? God really jukes Job here. He said, surely you know.
He's pretty hard on Job, right?
Huh?
He's pretty hard on Job.
He is in these 2 chapters. He's pretty hard on Job. And, you know, to what were the foundations fastened? Who laid its cornerstone when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Who shut in the sea with doors? And that's to your comment, Milford. They're combined, or confined, right? And so you can read on and on and on and on and on. He talks about snow. He talks about hail. Talks about all kinds of weather. In verse 34, he says, can you lift up your voice to the clouds, that an abundance of water may cover you? Can you make it rain, Job? All right. And so Michael's right. And these 2 chapters are actually several chapters, because he talks about animals, and he talks about all those things. Sam? Oh, yeah?
The difference in water levels would conflict.
Yeah.
Absolutely true.
Yeah, I think, and if Hobson was in here, he could really help us out. As a matter of fact, before too long, he's got a little, he and I are going to swap, and I'm going to do some training with the young folks, and he's got a good class coming up about those type of things. Being a biology teacher and a science teacher, he's got a good study coming up, really interesting. And so y'all look forward to that. So in nature, we see God's wisdom and we see God's understanding. It does.
I think it really does.
It really does.
AI will never make it right.
Sure won't.
Ever.
It won't.
Never.
It might can draw a pretty picture of one or make a video of it raining, but
Prayer to God can make it happen.
yeah, that's true. So that is where true wisdom is. True wisdom, not artificial wisdom. All right. Okay, let's go back to Proverbs chapter 3 and look at verses 21 and 22. Speaking of God's understanding and wisdom, my son, let them not depart from your eyes. Keep sound wisdom and discretion, so that they will be life to your soul and grace to your neck. In previous studies, we asked the question, why do we wear jewelry? Why do we wear a chain around our neck? Why do you do that? Why do we wear such accessories? Why do I wear a cap? What, dear? That's exactly right, to look pretty, make ourselves look better. And so what's God saying here? He said, you have wisdom, you have understanding of God, you're going to be a more attractive person. A more attractive person. Now, everybody might not like you, but you're still going to be more attractive, at least in God's eyes, for sure. Again, Solomon here encourages this young man to hold on to wisdom. And perhaps he's talking about our nature or our tendency to have a short attention span. I think now attention spans are even shorter than in a previous generation or two, probably. We live in a, 30-second world, right? Or 90-second world. And now, I don't know, young people, how long is a TikTok video? How long is that? 90 seconds, usually? Not even that long? 30 seconds or something? You get what?
Bored with it if it's 90 seconds. I keep scrolling.
Ah, see there? There's one talking right there, admitting it.
Talk to a young person and find that out.
I am too young. I listen to him.
I figured Dave was a big TikToker, so he's probably asking.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We don't want to get in a fuss over TikTok, but I think it is a good example of our short attention span. I think just a YouTube video, the going rate is 8 minutes. You get a video over 8 minutes, you don't get as many views as a video under 8 minutes. So it tells you something about our society. It tells you something about our attention span.
Didn't they used to say that you could keep a person's attention for about 20 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah. So the old saying is, I guess, Joanne says, you used to keep a person engaged about 20 minutes, you said? Yeah, about 20 minutes. Joanne, for some reason, I'm thinking I've heard 10. 10 minutes is optimal, I guess. And so, I got talking about preachers. Okay, now, Joanne's goosing me. I know. So, okay. No, you're probably right, Joanne. I know me personally, when I'm listening to someone, about 20 minutes, and I'm about ready for them to wrap things up. So I'd agree with that. And so our attention span is short. And so as our young sister said, we get bored real easy. And I find that in myself, whether I'm reading or watching video or whatever, I get bored easily. He also says to keep wisdom and discretion. Can anybody describe or define discretion? What is discretion? I'm sorry?
Not to show a lot of outwardly emotion.
Okay.
Decorum may be another fancy word.
Secretly.
Secretly, to show discretion is to secretly control oneself, maybe? Is that what you're saying?
Don't brag about your wisdom.
Another way, if you say that's at your discretion, it'll be your choice.
Your choice?
You're kind of the way you see fit to do it.
Okay.
Like,
Actually,
pull you over, it'll be his discretion to write you a ticket or give you a warning.
right. So it's his choice. Okay. Under self-control. And actually, all these definitions are probably fit into that box because the Hebrew word, and I'm going to Bowie County it for you, mesomal, it carries with it very different meanings. And so here it means the power of devising, closer to what David has said here, devising a decision or whatever. And so that is one thing that the young man here is encouraged to.
Count to 10 before you ever say anything.
Mary, that is a good piece of wise advice. Count to 10 before you say anything, and that is such good.
We talked about that this Sunday,
Sleep on it. Some of the wisest advice I think I got, I remember this. Johnny McJunkins was one of my internet teachers back in the 90s. Of course, in the 90s, the internet was just, we just started using email and those kind of things. Well, one of the things he taught us, and Johnny was a member of the church in Mineral Springs, by the way, and one of the things he taught us was when writing an email, especially when you're upset, write that email and put it in your outbox and then don't send it. Wait till tomorrow. And I thought that was some good advice. Like you said, give it a little time, and you know what? Probably you wouldn't send a lot of things that, and that's a problem, isn't it? The problem with this social media now. Man, you see something that just, it burns you up or it spurs you on, or the first thing you want to do is add a comment. Yeah, your knee-jerk reaction. And so that's where we all get in trouble, right? So we need to use discretion and think about these things. And so we have to be very careful about that, very careful. All right, so that's verse 21 and 22. Let's look at verse 23. Now, when we do this, when we keep discretion, when we keep wisdom, verse 23 says, then you will walk safely in your way and your foot will not stumble. I think that's just what we were talking about. Not using discretion, making unwise decisions, writing those things that we would regret. I think that's exactly what he's talking about there, that we would not.
Is it discreet, the root word of that?
I would think so, yeah.
That to me, maybe
That's private, right?
yes.
That's something private. Discreet is something that is private. I don't know, Michael, when you said that, from a lesson a long time ago, I heard about the discretion of marriage. And I think it was in like a men's class. And they were talking about your intimate relationship with your wife, with all your buddies at work and all that stuff. That for Christians, discretion is key. You never discuss those things, about the relationship with your wife. Never talk about them. And so you're right, discreet is those secret things that we should guard and we should keep.
Being able to act on someone else's behalf without discussion.
Sir?
In the finance word, it means being able to act on someone else's behalf without a discussion.
Yes. And I think, Milford, when you add that definition, well, we'll just use the elders, for instance. The elders deal with intercongregational problems that we know nothing about. We may sit back and say, them elders, they don't do nothing. Y'all just don't know. You just don't. And so, to me, when that happens, if we don't see anything or hear anything or see any dust flying, elders are doing a good job. So keep that in mind. Man, that's right, Mel, that they are taking care of those things with discretion. And that's a good point. Good point.
Too many times we want to engage your mouth before we engage your brain.
Yeah, that's right. We want to engage our mouth before we engage our brain. And I think that's what Thresia said, that knee-jerk reaction is what we have to avoid and be careful of. I can't remember which commanding general it was, but Sam, I want to think it was in Desert Storm. And he would do his daily news briefings. And when the press would ask him a question, Mary, he would pause. And you would think, what is this guy doing? He would just not say anything for, I don't know, several seconds. Sometimes longer than that. Well, he was using discretion. And he was working over, how am I going to answer this question? How am I going to keep troops out of harm's way? How am I going to not tell the enemy something that they don't need to know? All those, he was working those things. He was using discretion. And so it's something that I think Christians probably could do a better job at a lot of times. We all probably could do that and say those things that we don't need. So when we do that, as verse 23 says, when we do that, we'll walk safely on our way and our foot won't stumble. He probably should have put in there, you won't stick your foot in your mouth. Would probably be better for that verse as something that we're used to doing. All right, let's see where we are. One other comment that I did put down here, and the reason I know it because in a couple of weeks we're going to do this on Sunday morning from 2 Peter, and that's the Christian graces. And when you apply those things to your life, just like applying wisdom and understanding, he says when you make your call and election sure, that's 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 10. If you do these things, you'll never stumble. You'll never stumble. All right. So we'll look at verse 24. When you lie down, you will not be afraid. Yes, you will lie down, and your sleep will be sweet. I've done this when I've said something I shouldn't or handled a situation in a way I shouldn't. As soon as I lay down, it goes over and over. Doesn't that happen? It goes over and over. Janet says my mind kicked on. That's what she says happens to her. She said, I lay down, my mind kicked on. I thought about things Thresia and I did when we were kids. She couldn't sleep. Well, that's what the wise man's saying here. When we make those mistakes, it will keep us awake. It will keep us awake. I saw an interview with a military man, and he was talking about going without sleep. And he said he took the troops one time and wanted to test them because there would be periods where they would not sleep in combat situations. And so he said, if a body is without sleep for 24 hours, that person is cognitively declined, impaired. And so the troops disagreed with him. They said, no, we're good to go. So he would give them a test. And sure enough, after a day without sleep, they did not as good on the test as they would. So I wrote some notes about this because sleep is important to us. And so what's the old cliche about a person that sleeps really good? What is it? I can't remember.
You'll be jumping out of bed with all that kind of energy, your day will go so fast.
Yeah, you'll sleep good and wake up revived and all that. But I'm thinking about the man that sleeps, something about a guilty conscience. His conscience is free or something. But
That is the way I think the sweet sleep. You don't have one. When you have sweet sleep, you ain't cheating nobody.
yeah, when you have sweet, Mike says when you have sweet sleep, you ain't cheating nobody.
Nothing you have to worry about. Nothing.
Well, that's good. That's good. That's good. I thought about it this way. I wrote this down because because if I don't write things down when I think about it, they're gone. But you think about it, it's like a cycle, a circle, as far as making good decisions and wise decisions go. Good sleep improves cognitive function, crucial to making good decisions, while stress, anxiety can lead to restless sleep. So if you sleep good, you make good decisions. Good decisions make you sleep good. If you make bad decisions, have anxiety and drama in your life, and you can't sleep, well, the next day you're going to continue to have drama and anxiety and make bad decisions.
If you heard anybody discussing decisions that's about to be made, they said,
Kenneth brings up a good point. Someone who has a serious decision to make, and they'll say, let's sleep on it. And so giving themselves some time. So to comment on Mike's comment too, the person that has a right relationship with the Lord most of the time can sleep easy, most of the time. There are going to be times when there are bad things going on and we've got conflict or certain things in our lives that disturb our sleep. But for the most part, when our relationship is good with God, our sleep's going to be good. Our sleeps. I've always heard people say, I'm going to give it to God, I'm going to leave it alone, forget about it, I'm going to move on. And that's probably a good policy. All right. We talk so much, my Bible shut off. Okay. Verses 25 and 26. Do not be afraid of sudden terror, nor of trouble from the wicked when it comes, for the Lord will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being caught. I think this goes right along with what we've been talking about. Having that good relationship with the Lord, there are certain things that don't frighten us, certain things that won't bother us, won't keep us from sleeping, won't keep us from resting, won't keep us from making a decision. I jotted down a couple passages here. Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 6. Be strong and of good courage. Do not fear, nor be afraid of them, your enemies. For the Lord your God, He is the one who goes with you. And you might recognize this. He will not leave you nor forsake you. And you might remember that from Hebrews chapter 13, where the Hebrew writer quoted that when he said, I will never leave you or forsake you. So we can boldly say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear what can people, man, do to me. All right. Okay, it takes us to our next section. We're almost out of time, but we can get started, I think. And our next section is wisdom in social interaction, something that we all can use improvement in, I think. Verses 27 through 32, let's go ahead and read those. Verse 27, do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power of your hand to do so. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come back, and tomorrow I will give it, when you have it with you. Do not devise evil against your neighbor, for he dwells by you for safety's sake. Do not strive with a man without cause. If he has done you no harm. Do not envy the oppressor, and choose none of his ways. For the perverse person is an abomination to the Lord, but his secret counsel is with the upright. Okay, let's back up to verse 27. Verse 27. Do not withhold good from those whom it is due. When, it puts a little caveat on it, when it's within your power to do it. Within your power to do it. Commentators associate this verse with Romans chapter 13. And you might remember Romans chapter 13, there's a section there talking about paying taxes, that we should pay the taxes that we owe and should do that, and that's the right thing for God's people to do. However, in verse 8 of Romans chapter 13, it seems like Paul switches gears. He's talking about paying your taxes, but then he says, owe no one anything except to love one another. Now, if he's talking about taxes here, that doesn't make much sense, does it? If we're talking about paying taxes to government authority, that doesn't make sense that we should love government authority. He's talking about an individual here, surely. He says, owe no one anything except to love one another, for he who loves another has fulfilled the law. And so to give to that person what is due to that person. So basically, a Christian is to pay his debts in a timely manner, not to owe anyone. And I understand there are situations sometimes that can't be helped, but for the most part, that is our attitude toward indebtedness. Let me ask you this. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but how many of y'all could go down to Orr Chevrolet today and buy a brand new car without a loan? Not very many of us could do that, could we? And so lending and borrowing and lending, it's been a way of civilization for a long, long time. Even in ancient times, in the Old Testament. Because in the law of Moses, there are many, many laws about borrowing and giving to the poor and those type of things. So it's something that God included in His law, and He includes it here in the New Testament as well. That, I could never buy a car without a loan, or buy a house without a loan, and you do. You pay for it for the rest of your life nowadays. Janet and I were talking about the other day because, there's a place or two that's for sale down by James and I right now. And so I just out of curiosity, I looked one of those up. My goodness, I said, Janet said, you don't want to buy that, do you? I said, there ain't no bank going to loan me money at my age, that much money, unless the payments are like $1 bazillion a month, And so that's just something that, at least at my stage in life, is probably not ever going to happen again. So we're not to owe anybody any money. But what if you think about this not in that context, but what if you think about it in the context of individuals? What do you think? Galatians chapter 6, verse 10, therefore, if we have opportunity to do good, as we have opportunity to do good, do that to all people, especially those of the household of faith. 1 John chapter 3, verse 17 and 18, but whoever has this world's goods and sees his brother in need and shuts his heart from him, how does the love of God abide in him? My little children, let us not love in word or tongue, but in deed and in truth. Scott shared that verse with us Sunday night. And, of course, this one that James and I want to take out of the Bible, James 4:17, therefore, to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin. So, going back to verse 27, do not withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in your power to do so. Now, I like verse 28. You can look at that as the gospel too, Kenneth. They're exactly right. Yeah, that's right. It's a bigger treasure than any kind of monetary thing we could give anybody. That's a good point. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come back, and I'll give it to you tomorrow when you have it with you then. Mm-hmm. Ma'am? They are not going to pay you back, are they? Here he comes. He wants to borrow my tools again. I had to buy the last ones he borrowed because he never brought them back or broke them, you know.
Somebody meets you at your car when you're putting your groceries in there and says, I need some money for gas so I can go take care of my sick child or something like that.
I wonder if that,
What do you do?
you know, Mary,
So I've been approached like that, and I had a few dollars in my pocket, so I just pulled it out and give it to them.
you know, I'm going to be facetious. I'm going to be ugly. But that story must be in the Panhandler's Handbook. When they train to be a panhandler, they say, here's one story you can use on anybody. You use it on church people. You can use it on people in the parking lot. I'm out of gas. I got to go see somebody who's sick or trying to make it to Dallas or whatever. Yeah, Dave.
My daddy-in-law has a real good fix for that.
Yeah?
He's like, man, I tell you what, I got a farm up the road up here. I need this done and this done and this done. I'll pay you a good wage.
There you go. Yeah. Well, a lot of times. But you know, you never can tell. Someone might surprise you every once in a while. Say, I'll go with you. I'll do a little work. But I always think about when I read things like this, I think about my close neighbors. You know, if James Sutton comes to my house, won't borrow my lawnmower, I'm going to say, I wonder if that rascal going to put gas in it when he brings it back. You know. That's a lesson for most of us, I think, is, you know, I shouldn't care whether he brings, I should be happy that I get to loan something or give something to my neighbor, okay? I should be happy. And again, as Kenneth mentioned, that's also an opportunity for the gospel, isn't it, Ken? When we help people, that's an opportunity for the gospel. And that happens sometimes, it surely does. All right, we're about out of time. Let's see what, good. We'll just mark that spot there, and we'll review that next week and start there.
And me and David have talked about that before. You know, you see a lot of people, especially in Texarkana these days.
Yeah.
You know, and I said, if we don't, you know, we're raising a family of six right now. I mean, you know, we got a lot on our plate, but let's, you know, carry in a bottle of water and a thing of crackers. It's, you know, I mean.
No, Emily, and I've been meant to do this, and I just can't remember to do it. And my sister does this. She has these little Ziploc bags that has a little, you know, she carry water with her. She has these little Ziploc bags with things in them, you know. Some people put little gift cards for a cup of coffee and a sandwich, you know, at a McDonald's or something. They'll put some hygiene products in there, and no reason you couldn't slip a little New Testament or something in there, you know. And I think that's a good idea. I mean, what harm's that going to do? You're spending a few dollars and trying to do good, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. As a matter of fact, I think that's a good practice and a good.
This day and age,
Yeah.
you never know what they're gonna go spend that money on.
That's true. That's true. All right, good class. Thank y'all so much.
All right, everybody, it's about time for us to get going. Let's not forget, this Sunday is our fellowship meal and our friends and family day, 9 a.m. We're going to have a elders and deacons meeting in the fellowship hall. Let's see, a House of Recovery pantry item is sugar. I see Miss Mary's back, so I'm glad your knee's better, Miss Mary. Continue to remember Scott as he heals, and Kayla and Calvin and Miss Virginia Hooten, Mary McNally, Lottie, Sheila is with us tonight. Howard, Marcia Alton, and Jim Goodrick. New month, new servants list. Mike's our song leader. Paul's our scripture reader. Tim, Turner, Cody, and Lee are on the table. Trent and Clay's got it at night. Sean and Nick are going to count. Johnny's got our security this month. Devo list, David has got it tonight, followed by Trent, Cody, and Dan. Birthdays, we're to the 3rd. So, tomorrow, Jimmy Mint and Dallas Sparkman have a birthday, and the 5th, Colby has a birthday. And then the 6th, Dan and Melissa have an anniversary. Is there anything else we need to announce?
546.
546. If you want to turn there, I'll be our hymn of invitation. David? Whoop, hold on, bud. Jay, did you hear that? Did we ever confirm that Jonathan will be here Sunday?
He'll be here.
Is he going to do his presentation during class time?
He didn't say, I just told him to get both slots,
Okay.
so he'll be here.
Well, we'll let y'all know Sunday morning if we're having class or all coming in here then. That work?
Hello. I'm gonna do something a little different. I usually write out my devos. I didn't do that this time. And we had a real good discussion in the auditorium class a while ago about attention span, so I'm gonna keep this devo to about 60 to 90 seconds, all right? Do what?
You caught on.
I caught on real fast. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I know a bunch of y'all in here have probably had the opportunity to use a tape measure before in your lives. I know Jay does, and he probably measures stuff all the time. I do. I know James probably has a lot of experience with it. A lot of you probably do, pulling out the old tape measure. And if any of you have a lot of experience with that, you know if you're measuring something and it's gonna make a pretty good run, you mess up just a fraction of an inch down here, it'll turn into something real big down there. And I do a lot of construction, I build things, and I was working on something this past summer, and I thought of that, and I thought, boy, if I mess this up just a little bit, it's gonna be real bad down there. So, that got me to thinking. I thought, you know, that's kinda like, I'm just gonna tell this little lie. Or I'm just gonna do this little thing that I shouldn't be doing, and it may not seem like that big of a deal now, but on down the line a little distance, it might turn into something real bad. And I thought about that, and I thought about how we probably need to be careful about that. And I know I do. And you know, you might say something, be ugly to somebody, or do something you shouldn't be doing, and you look up, and that small thing has turned into many things that you're doing wrong, or you know, or it's turned into a big, huge thing. And I thought about, tried to find a verse because I knew it was in there. I tried to find a verse that explained that a little bit. And if you go to 1 Corinthians 5 and verse 6, it says, "Your glorying is not your own. Do you not know that a little leaven leavens the whole lump?" In other words, it doesn't take but a little bit to affect the whole thing. And I believe that, you know, if we let little things go and we don't pay attention to those small, what we would call a small sin, but a small sin, like telling a little lie or doing something we shouldn't be doing, that might turn into something we would call a major thing one day. And that's not something we need to be doing, I don't believe. I definitely don't myself. So that little leaven leavens the whole lump. And after that, he says, "Therefore purge out the old leaven, that you may be a new lump, since you truly are unleavened. For indeed Christ our Passover was sacrificed for us." So I think that's worth it to pay attention to something like that. If you got anything you need tonight, you can come on up while we stand and sing.
Troublesome times are here, filling men's hearts with fear. Bring we all dear, now is at stake. On your heart to God's faith with cherishing right. Seek the way to pilgrims try, bridge the way. Jesus is coming soon, morning or night or noon. He will be there soon. Trumpets will sound, surely sound. All the dead shall rise, like phoenix in the skies. Nowhere, nowhere one dies, heavenward bound. Troubles will soon be o'er, and forevermore. When we meet on that shore, free from all care. Rise up in the sky, telling these worlds goodbye. Homeward we will fly, glory to share. Jesus is coming soon, morning or night or noon. Many will there do, trumpets will sound, surely sound. All the dead shall rise, righteous in the skies. Going where nowhere one dies, heavenward bound. David, that message was short, but it was very effective. Very effective. Very good. Let's turn to 456. I think this song sums it up pretty good. If I can get there. 456. No. 456, and I was going the wrong way still. Sing the first and last verses. Now the day is over, night is drawing nigh. Shadows of the evening still across the sky. When the morning wakens, then may I arise, pure and fresh and sinless, in thy holy eyes.
God, we're so thankful that you brought us here tonight. We're so mindful too, there's so many that don't have the health to be here that would love to be with us. Father, I pray that you be with them, bless them, be with those that are taken care of, help us, to minister to them. If that opportunity arises, we pray for it. Be with us as we go through the rest